Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers Hampton. I'm Patrick Netherton. Pleased to have you with us. And a guy that I missed by 2 years at Northwestern State, but have had the pleasure of meeting multiple times during Final Fours over with Timmy B on the Tim Brando Show. Now the first-year head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies down in College Station. We'll get to see him on Wednesday night when the Demons head down there to face the Aggies. He is Buzz Williams, who joins us now on the Patrick Netherton Show. Coach, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing?
Man, I'm good. Let's back up a little bit and let's talk about this move because you're a Texas native and you were at A&M for a couple of years as an assistant. I know as soon as that job popped open, everyone started bandying your name about. But tell us why, for you, this was the right move.
Well, you never know the timing of jobs, the location of jobs. All of that is kind of out of the coach's control. I've been very blessed for any and every job that I've been able to get, and many of them have been better than I deserve. There was the story of Virginia Tech in our 5 years there was remarkable. They had finished in last place 3 years in a row, and we finished in last place in our first year. And then, obviously, at the conclusion of year 5, we were in the Sweet 16. So nobody could have ever predicted that it would have turned out in the manner that it did. Billy Kennedy, when the job was opened the last time at Texas A&M, they had called me. I did not feel like it was the right time. And I thought Coach Kennedy, who's as good a person as Coach McCarthy is, I thought he was a great hire and had a lot of success here, 2 Sweet 16s during his time here. But, anytime I don't have an agent. And so that's rare anymore in this business, in football and basketball specifically. And so anytime all of that stuff arises, obviously whoever is involved, they have to contact me. And anytime we make a decision, we always make a decision as a family. And we just felt like the timing was right, not only for me, but also all of the families from Virginia Tech. Nine of our staff members at Virginia Tech followed us to College Station. So obviously a decision that impacts many. It's bigger than just me and what I think. It also has to do with my family and all of the families that we brought with us.
You mentioned Billy Kennedy, and I think, Buzz, that it makes for an easier transition for you. We see it in football a lot, where if you go from a pro-style offense to a spread tempo offense, there can be some growing pains, but you and Billy share a lot of similarities in philosophy anyway, defense, low turnovers, all that stuff. I would imagine that's got to make that transition somewhat easier for you.
I don't know. Through 19 practices, an exhibition game, and a scrimmage, we're not doing very good. We had 23 turnovers against A&M Kingsville on Friday night, so I've done a poor job thus far, but hopefully before Coach Mack arrives on Wednesday, we'll be a little better. Kingsville shot 17 more balls than we did on Friday, so that's never that's bad math. And so we've got a lot of work ahead of us for sure.
That being said, you also are dealing with your fair share of injuries. I know Nebo has not really practiced this year. Tell me about trying to get your guys on the floor that are available to you, because in the end, if you've got guys that are sitting on the bench, guys that can't go, that makes it doubly tough to put in what you're trying to put in.
Yeah, there's some of that going on. I think injury is a part of support, and you can't control it. I'm probably a little overprotective than I should be with kids that get hurt. We have 2 open scholarships, so there's only 11 scholarship players on our team. Nebo has not practiced yet. Cassius McNeely has been struggling with an injury on and off. He's practiced 6 times. And then we had an injury on Friday night to TJ Starks with an ankle sprain. And so we're down to 8 scholarship guys. That's okay. Gives those 8 guys more reps. But as of yet, thus far, we haven't been able to have our entire team on the floor. And because of the newness, not because of an excuse, there is truth in what you said, in that they're all at kind of various levels of understanding, partly because of their opportunities to practice. So the calendar is going to continue to move and transpire, and so we'll just continue to try to figure out whatever is best relative to the kids that are healthy enough to play and practice.
Talking to Buzz Williams, head coach for Texas A&M, and you mentioned the exhibition game against Kingsville. I know that exhibitions are somewhat new in the way that they're now being able to be done in college basketball, but I was a little surprised you hadn't done one before. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, I prefer not to do them just because I think it's one of the least regulated things the NCAA does when you have a scrimmage. When you have a scrimmage, you can do a lot of different things maybe that are more helpful in January and February than you can playing a non-Division I team. The head coach at Texas A&M Kingsville was a graduate assistant when I was there as an assistant, and then he eventually worked for Coach Orr, who I was a manager for when I was a freshman and sophomore. He worked for Coach for 9 years, and then when I became the head coach at Marquette, I hired Coach Orr, and Johnny Estelle, the coach that I'm speaking of, replaced Coach Orr. So it was the first exhibition of my career as a head coach. We honored Coach Orr before the game, which was a big part of why I wanted to do it, but also it was an opportunity to help Johnny. Obviously, they're a part of the Texas A&M system, so it was somewhat easy to pass through our proper chains in order to help their program. So it was good, and in hindsight, it was healthy for our team. We didn't play well, but it was a good rep for all of us because it was the first time we had ever been together with the lights on and people in the seats. So in many respects, it was a good rep, regardless of all of the ways that we were able to honor Coach and help Johnny as well.
You mentioned during your post-game presser that that details matter to you. You were talking about where do I go to shower, when do I go here, where do I go here, that kind of thing. What is your sort of your pregame ritual? Are you very ritualistic when it comes to I have to do this thing at this point in time? Are you kind of laissez-faire? What do you like pregame?
Yeah, I would say honestly, I'm very ritualistic in every day. Not that every day is game day, but I think if you want to be as good as you can be on game day, figuratively, you have to live each day like it's game day. I'm not very good at wasting time, whether that's as a husband or as a father, as an employee. I'm anxiously built, and so I like to have a rhythm. I like to have a routine. Sometimes that's a curse. Sometimes it's a blessing. But on game day, I am pretty much the same, whether we're playing at home, whether we're playing on the road. Some of those variables you can control, some of them you can't. And it was the first game at Texas A&M, and so I was a little out of sorts, not because of the game, just because of all the things that led into the game. So hopefully I can be a little bit better on Wednesday. But I'm very ritualistic in everything. What time I wake up, no matter what day it is, or game day, or the summer, or the preseason. It's just kind of part of my nature, and it always has been.
What time do you wake up, by the way?
4:30.
Ooh, man, you're a better man than I am, Coach. I can tell you that. 4:30.
Well, I'm just not very good, so you better wake up early and try to get things done. If you're as talented as you are, and you have shows and podcasts and producers, and you're hanging out with Brando, you probably don't have to wake up that early. No. Brando probably goes to bed that early.
That's about what time Brando is usually capping off his night, no doubt about it. Yeah. Talking to Buzz Williams from Texas A&M. You mentioned Mike McCarthy in Northwestern State. Obviously, you got a year. That's kind of where your career sort of springboarded from. You went from there, Colorado State, A&M, got your first head coaching gig down at UNO. Tell me about your time in Natchitoches.
I love Coach. Coach hired me without an interview. Coach hired me. When I showed up in Natchitoches, I went straight to the HR department, started filling out paperwork. I absolutely adore who he is as a person, and harken back to a lot of the lessons that I learned from him as a human and how that translated to who he was as a coach. I wasn't there quite one full year. Obviously, I was there one season. Had not gotten married. I got engaged that fall when I worked for Coach. It was my second stint in the Southland Conference, but it was my first stint in Louisiana / with Coach. And I just have the utmost respect for who he is as a person and his ability to be as successful as he has been on and off the floor, not only in his 21 years at Northwestern, but also in his time at Bipsy. When you look at all of the coaches across the country that have been a head coach at their school 20 years or longer, I don't think, but I think Kay's done it, maybe Boeheim. I think there's one other. And then you think about all of the games that he's won at Bipsy, at Northwestern, but the manner in which he's done it. You know, his integrity has never been questioned by anybody. It's not questioned by the kids he coaches. It's not questioned by the coaches that work for him. Very hard. It will be impossible to replace what Coach has meant to Northwestern. And so I just have the utmost respect and very grateful that he hired me from a Division II school and gave me an opportunity to get back to that level. But have the fondest memories of the apartment that I lived in, of the car that I drove, of the place that Coach would take me Monday through Thursday to eat at lunch. I remember all of it. I remember the players that were on the team. I remember the players that we signed that I didn't coach. I remember the assistants. Coach Simmons was on the staff. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's back with me.
Yep.
I remember all of it. And I have maintained a great relationship with Coach. He sent me a handwritten note. It was one of the first ones that I got when I got to A&M. And I just adore who he is, and he has always been an example to me of what I would like to be as a coach, as a husband, as a father, because he's always going to do what in his heart he believes to be right, regardless of Twitter, regardless of Instagram. He knows what right and wrong is, and he's going to make sure that everyone in his program operates with the highest level of integrity.
Yeah, you know he doesn't know what Twitter or Instagram even is at this point.
And I'm not sure that he's not right about that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Talking to Buzz Williams from Texas A&M. All right, Coach, tell me about your team. I know you like you said, we're battling some injuries. You got some issues there, but you know, what do you think this team is ultimately going to look like in your first year?
Yeah, I don't know. We're still trying to figure out how to do huddles really well and timeouts. We're trying to figure out how to do a free throw blockout the right way. We're trying to learn how to talk to one another with purpose, trying not to kick the ball all over the gym, trying to figure out what a perfect shot is, what an average shot is, what a bad shot is. I think we've been accountable for our time in regards to what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know that we have been as accountable as you have to be at this level relative to how well we execute. Our execution level is below average, to say the least, and we've got a lot of work of being able to maybe follow up and follow through on all the things that we're teaching on both ends. You see spurts of it where we're trying to do right. You see spurts where there's 3 or 4 guys on the floor trying to do right, but 1 or 2 aren't. And so we're not where we need to be going into our first game relative to our execution. So it's hard for me to say how good we're going to be. I don't know. I mean this not coach speak. I try to stay away from that. Like, I'm more concerned with, can we have a really good practice today? Because we didn't practice yesterday, and through our time of practicing, anytime we have a day off, we typically do not follow that up with good work following a day off. So today is another opportunity to see if we can get better in that regard. But that's a lot of stuff that we need to accomplish before Wednesday night at 7 for sure.
when you're in your fourth, fifth year at Virginia Tech, you cycled through players where now you've got all of your guys are there and they know what your expectations are and they've grown. Is it invigorating to in almost in certain terms to just start over, where you go in and now you have to teach a new group of kids what your expectations are and they have to grow and learn? Is it frustrating? Is it everything? Is it what's it like going through the first year again with a group of kids?
Yeah, that's a good question. I agree. It's both. And it's probably in between both. But it probably spends just as much time on one extreme as the other as it does in between. We've done this a few times where it's year number one, and I think we've improved each time. We've packed up the circus and went somewhere else. I try to not only review year 5 daily notes at Virginia Tech, I also try to review year 1 notes from Virginia Tech, and did the same. It was year 6 and year 1 at Marquette, obviously only 1 year at New Orleans, but try to spend a half a day on the first day of each month kind of looking through my calendar at the close of my tenure at Virginia Tech, but also at the beginning, same at Marquette, just to have a feel for what were we doing in practice, where were we at in recruiting, are we ahead of where we should be, are we going too fast, are we going too slow. I kind of use that as a barometer. We hope that Texas A&M year 1 can be better than Virginia Tech year 1 just because we've done it before.
Yeah.
And so just like I think year 1 at Virginia Tech versus year 1 at Marquette, the one thing that I would say that is hard to quantify is sometimes you get going and you realize that you're in 5th grade and they haven't passed 3rd grade yet.
Right.
And it's not necessarily because the kids don't want to. It's because you forgot to teach them that lesson plan from 3rd grade, so they can't formulate a way to execute what you're asking them to do in 5th grade. And so what I've tried to make sure that I'm aware of is that we're not skipping steps. So many times people think that that's on the floor, and that is true. It is on the floor, but there's probably more that goes into off the floor before you ever get to the court than most people realize. And so not skipping steps in how do we watch tape, not skipping steps in how do we take notes, not skipping steps in how we prepare for practice, how we prepare for games. There's so many of those variables when you're trying to maybe set a foundation, lay a foundation. Before you start building the house, you got to also buy the land and figure out where you're going to build, and you got to dig a big hole so that the foundation is strong enough for what you want to build on top of it. And sometimes I haven't been as good as I need to be at. I want to hurry up and start building,
Sure.
But before I start building, we probably need to dig the hole a little deeper than we have.
Well, grab that shovel and start digging, Coach. Look, we're very pleased to see you over at Texas A&M, back closer to home, and certainly looking forward to a lot of success from you. And thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it, Buzz.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Take care.
All right, Buzz Williams, head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies in his first year